It's a name that actually pulls people in.
Here we go. We're back to the state of Web3 gaming. We were just talking about the name of this, but that's in fact the name until we get a better name. Maybe we'll brand it a little bit more. But welcome back, Chris and Ian. This is awesome to have you here. We're going to be talking about Web3 games and what it is from a developer's perspective. There's enough stuff out there that just talks about like the player perspective, which is really, really important too. But we're trying to like help bring game developers up to speed on what they might want to know about Web3, everything from what the investor space looks like for that through the technology stuff. Last time we talked about the complexity of the technology. And I really want to use this as a showcase to just bring more game developers into the room too. So part of this show that we'll be doing weekly is you can DM me. The probably the most convenient places to DM me would just be on X. If you don't use X for some reason, you want to do it on LinkedIn. I'll try to glance over there too, but it's a little more spammy to me. But what we're really interested in doing is just bringing more developers in, share your experiences building a game, and educate the whole community and tell us like why was Web3 the right solution for you, things like that. So last time we had 1,200 people at the peak audience. We had several thousand live viewers. So we're going to try to crack the record today. We'll see what happens. So again, welcome back, Chris.
I think I had. Thank you. I think I had your. I was trying to share your link on LinkedIn, and I think it was repeating you. If that's where you heard the echo. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm in a hotel, and I'm annoyed by my backlighting that's putting this ray of light through my I do not have my live stream from a remote hotel facility game down quite yet. So I may jump,
just be down with it.
I'm gonna jump behind myself. Oh, look at that. I front lit myself and that helped a little bit. I don't know. So Game Dad. What's the story on Game Dad?
My son for people who follow me, follow my various social media. So when my son started working for my company last year as an intern, I called him. I told him he needed a nickname so we would have work personal separation. So I called him Game Boy at work, and then I told him if he did a good job, he would get promoted to Game Boy Advance by the end of the company. And he did get clever. He did do a good job. So then for my
created a level up, you gamified it. You created
I gamified it. And then for Father's Day, my family, my son and my daughter made this hat that I that I already got some barbecue smirchy shit on.
That's barbecue sauce? No.
But
just charcoal.
It's like fat off the brisket.
I wish. I'm cleaning the
burn-ins.
So I'm cleaning the grill.
On the.
And this, you remarked on my Headbangers Ball T-shirt.
Yeah. What's this Gen X?
The Headbangers Ball story is when I was helping Paramount with their NFT strategy. We were going to do MTV, so I bought some shirts. And what I wanted to do with MTV was to do like MTV idents, like their logos. They call them MTV IDs. It's like a PFP generative art thing. And then what I thought would be cool is if you had like some of them were like Yo MTV Raps, some of them are, Headbangers Ball, whatever, reflected different like shows and eras of MTV. And then what I wanted to do is make a Discord where you go into those different channels and like in those sub channels in Discord, and you're playing like basically like old video of MTV. Like how dope would it be if there was like a Headbangers Ball and you could go in there and just hang out and chat and watch Headbangers Ball. Like amazing. It was fucking
it would be cool.
89.
Unplugged.
So how's MTV's Web3 doing?
They're not doing anything because they got scared off,
Yeah.
Well, that's good for all the entrepreneurs watching this, though, because go disrupt things in a way that doesn't depend on some mega media company buy-in.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you could make a pretty cool. I mean, YouTube is MTV now, right? And Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know if anyone's done like a music video Discord, but that would be like, I would hang out there. Why not? Right? It'd be super fun.
I mean, it's kind of, I'm sure there's Twitch channels that kind of do it, but yeah, right. You got to have the rights to everything. So there's always that wrinkle.
Yeah, well, not if you stream. Well, yeah, I mean, yes, but not if you stream.
Yeah.
Not if you. I mean, you could stream Vivo, right? So all the rights are on YouTube, but then you don't technically have the right to rebroadcast into your Discord. It's all fucked up. Like the rights are such a disaster in Hollywood. Like the Hollywood, like entertainment has to figure out how to be more shareable, right? The fact that like people could see something and then want to reshare it and it's like a copyright violation is redonkulous, you know?
I built, a whole bunch of licensed IP games out of Hollywood. I don't know if anyone has licensed as many big name IP as I have, actually. Walking Dead, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Archer.
Who was the easiest to work with?
Were all of those different deals? Or did you go through an agency or?
No, I did all those deals myself. I had help internal to our company as well.
Who was the easiest to work with?
I would say HBO was really great to work with. So was CBS. Now I'm making a list of by exclusion the two, but so those were the two that were really great to work with. And
so AMC was not.
I'm not gonna. Well, okay, that's a whole other story about we did not deal with AMC. We dealt with Skybound,
right?
Because that's just a complicated situation where the rights are split.
They have split rights,
and I would say as a game developer, never get in the middle of that shit show, but because it over licenses the IP in a way that is not good. But Star Trek was great to work with CBS. They have a whole department of lore basically that understands the history of it. I visited the old warehouse where they have all those props from every Star Trek episode ever.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the people that are behind it there, they're just. It was geeking out, but also just the people that are doing that stuff at CBS were they just had a joy to it. Obviously they're in the business to license this stuff, make money, but it came from a very authentic place. They just loved Star Trek and they would love to tour you through the warehouse and show you that stuff. So that was great. And HBO was our first. I mean, it really started with George R. R. Martin it took me 2 years to get an audience with George, and then we were able to license Game of Thrones from him. And then it was just at the time that they had wrapped the first season but hadn't aired it yet. And I remember talking to George, and he was like, I don't even know if the show's going to be any good. He was really stressing over whether his life's work was going to be just
translated well.
It's TV. Well, it's just TV. You never know. Even while you're producing it, you don't really know for sure. Is it going to really catch?
Yeah.
And he was worried about it. And of course, it ended up being great. Everybody loved the first season. It had 10 million viewers during the first season, and then it went up to 25 million viewers by the second season. It was incredible. You usually don't even see that kind of season to season growth in a show.
Yeah.
And that's just what they knew about, by the way. It probably was even more pirating than that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was definitely extensively pirated in China, for example.
But
George.
So you had the first Game of Thrones game?
There had been some kind of console game. It didn't have a big audience on it, but there had been a license of some kind before me. I didn't even play that game, so I don't know. I don't think it was that successful.
Would you go after that? Would you go after that again? For let's say, how far into web, or I would just say game dev success, would you like to be comfortably before you approach a license? If you're an indie, are you going after it? Do you wait till you have some amount of money in the bank? What's your guideline for someone else, some indie out there that's thinking, oh, I love this show. I love Dexter. I'd love to make a Dexter game, or whatever. What would you recommend for them?
Look, I have a lot of war stories from the world of licensing, and some scars that came along with that. I don't really recommend that as a business model for a game for the vast majority of game developers today.
Yeah.
I think we got good at it at Disruptor Beam. There were other people like Scopely that figured out how to scale the hell out of that model in a way that we didn't quite get to at Disruptor Beam, but we built some hit games that had, our Game of Thrones game had 11 million players, so it was a decent game. Here's how the market changed over the course of time that I did it. So when I launched a Game of Thrones game, no one was doing licensing. In fact, when I talked to publishers, they were all because I initially talked to publishers to try to back this game. And the main feedback I got is, well, why would you want to give margin to a license?
Yeah.
That's a waste of money. Go build your own IP. But I had a different thesis, which is that since there wasn't a lot of licenses, that the brand recognition effect of having a really strong license on a game would allow us to rise above the noise of all the spam that you're seeing on Facebook and iOS and whatnot. And it totally worked. Like we spent almost zero marketing dollars on the Game of Thrones Ascent game we did. And HBO was a great partner in the launch as well. Like they were very supportive. Like in the day we did it in Facebook was when if you have a popular fan page on Facebook, you could just post something and you'd immediately get massive viewership on it. So like they would post on their fan page for Game of Thrones about the game, and we would get 5,000 installs in like 1 minute. Like it was insane. Wow. So yeah, and I don't know of any way you get like Premiere featuring on the App Store used to be able to do things like that for you, but that's waned. But now the publishers are right in what they told me a decade ago.
Right. It eventually came true.
They were right at the wrong time. They were wrong then because there was a huge asymmetric advantage to the brand at that time. Today, it's very little advantage, and you're still paying very costly user acquisition on top of that. So the numbers really just don't pencil out today. I think it most likely does for a Scopely or someone who can bring hundreds of millions of players to bear quickly as part of a UA, because you've got a massive network effect across multiple games that you can cross-pollinate. That's different. But like for a smaller game developer, I'd say that where the opportunities there exist are where there's a brand new platform where you could stand out on the platform and gain the asymmetric advantage that I had then. But definitely not on mobile. Like mobile, I feel like you're kind of wasting your time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of licensors of IP talk to me these days, and they're like, because now I just get asked about it, even though I'm not in the business of being the licensee anymore. I tell them all the same thing. I'm like, if you've got a hot IP as the media owner, you should actually own the game. Like, why do you want to license that? Like, build it into you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Chris, too, because you were on that side. Like, I would be telling the people like you back when you were at NBC and Disney, like, don't license it, just own it. Like, you could build a property that will be this tremendous flywheel back into your media.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're right that, back when I was at Disney, we, featuring, if you had a big IP, you would probably get featured. And that featuring was worth something back then. Like, we would get, 1, if not 2, if not 3 million free installs off of launch weekend where we got featured. And then when we pushed updates and did events and things and gave them kind of something new that looked good in art, we would get refeatured a lot, so that is one benefit is the app stores do like to feature IP. But the problem is at this point, like all the IP with any big pull has really been licensed out. And if you look at Marvel as an example, like, which has probably been the most successful IP, I think, in mobile, it's got, probably half a dozen games that are licensed at any one time. And of that, it's really one or two that do any meaningful business, because what happens is if Future Fight or if Strike Force is the high LTV game, one of the games gets the highest LTV. They're all licensed to different people, and then they all compete in the same ad market. So, what's the difference really from one Marvel game to another when you're looking at it in an ad? Like they have the same characters and everything. And it used to be that like, oh, we could do some things like when the Avengers came out, we would change all the icons to Avengers icons, and then we'd get some Avengers like little, feature zone that featured all of our IP or something. That doesn't really happen as much anymore. So you just don't get the organic stuff. And so therefore you have to market through UA. You have to buy users, and you have to believe for the license to be worth it that one, you have the highest LTV of all the games that are under that franchise. And then two, that that the IP is going to give you a discount on UA, which is not necessarily the case if it's competitive, right? I would argue that Marvel CPIs are probably elevated because they're competing against other Marvel games for the same keywords, the same targets, everything. So, I like IPs these days. The only IPs I like are IPs that are like undervalued but have high high awareness. So for example, and where the IP owner is relatively easy to work with. So like, Care Bears, when we did integrations with that when we did stuff at Recur, or we did integrations of that into the Funko game, those did quite well because Care Bears has 100% brand awareness, right? Like everyone knows the Care Bears, but there aren't a lot of standalone Care Bear games, or you're not competing against anything, right? So if there's any interest in that IP, like you're going to get it. You're going to get all monopoly on that attention. But increasingly, like the good stuff has been licensed out in mobile. I still think there's an opportunity around. I was trying to pitch a friend the other day on doing like IP for like Fortnite maps. Like I was like, I would love to do They Live as a Fortnite mode, or I would love to do like even The Thing. I would love to do The Thing as a Fortnite mode or something like that. Like I think that some of those, like, but the problem with those is, because I've gone down the road of looking at some of those, you got to get John Carpenter's approval, and then there's a manager that has part of the rights, and you have to go track him down, and he's wacky and doesn't want to do business. And it's so complicated. And, for concepts that, like, at the end of the day, like, you could just come up with your own version of that, of those ideas, call it something else. The awareness. I mean, this is the problem with a lot of this IP, is that it's really kind of like boomer shit, right? It's like, 80s, 90s kind of stuff that we have affinity for, nostalgia for. But Gen Z today, like people who, the people who drive the gaming industry, they don't necessarily give a shit. So like, I think that's the other thing to me about IP now, is that we're really in this cultural, I think we're in a cultural moment where internet culture has kind of taken over from like traditional Hollywood culture, and I don't think we're really going back. And you would probably, I mean, look at who Scopely is partnering with now when they do integrations. It's guys like Mr. Beast. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, how many Star Wars? How many games can do a Star Wars integration at a time where Star Wars, is kind of down in terms of fan sentiment? Like, if you activate around the Acolyte, is that really going to do anything for you versus like doing something with Mr. Beast, or Kai Cenat, or something? You know what I mean? Like there's people that are in the games business that are in the bullseye that you could do things with that are internet brands where their audience is on the internet, and it's easier to convert. So I think it's going to be harder I think if you have a big franchise, you'll always do well. But I think that that VCs, like investors, they don't want you to build somebody else's IP. They want you to build your own IP. I think Scopely just did it at kind of the right moment in time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at some level, they were kind of. I mean, I come from this because, like, we licensed the Kentucky Derby, and that was a big gamble for us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like it felt like it hit your qualification there too, Chris, where it was like punching above their weight. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. There's no other games with it, and then obviously it is the name that we all recognize, so it felt like a natural.
Yeah,
I should get this one, as opposed to like if I was EA, I would be getting every track, every rate, and it's like who cares about anything else other than the Derby, right? Obviously, I want more, but that was the main one to go. But yeah, I think just like generally speaking, Scopely like had this blueprint they were going after, but they felt like they were almost dead at the time. A lot of people don't remember, like, until the Savvy and the Monopoly Go thing happened. Like, I don't know if Scopely was going to make it, and then it's like monster hit. I mean, like the biggest hit was Monopoly Go, but like if those hadn't happened, if they hadn't nailed that, like I'm not sure we might be having this discussion. Like, see, IP is totally stupid. Those guys just ran it into the ground because
they lost a lot of money for a long time, and they raised a lot of money, right? And they raised, I mean, God knows how many rounds. They burned a lot of capital to get to where they are. That's for sure, right?
Yeah, a lot of shots.
We'll have to bring some folks from Scopely on here sometime. And on that topic, by the way, so our live audience, we're up to 192 people. So good start here. So nice to see that people continue to be really interested in this topic. So a few points of order. We've been talking about licensed games. I want to kind of drill into the Web3 kind of angle on licenses, because maybe that's an opportunity to sort of bring licensing into the equation in a way that will make more sense for startups like Ian has done with Kentucky Derby. But a couple points of order. This is an open floor. So, Chris, Ian, and I, we can talk for an hour, but one of the nice things was last time we had people come into the conversation as well. So number one, you can post comments. If you don't want to appear live, that's totally cool. Comments are on Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think it works on X that way, and YouTube. So if you're on any of those watching us in real time, post your comment, and that can be a question or a comment, and we'll discuss it. The other is, if you want to appear live, and this is a platform for game developers, right? So we would love to hear from game developers who are building Web3. And by the way, it would be really fun. Bring on someone who is a game developer but isn't Web3 yet, but maybe you're Web3 curious. You want to be red-pilled into Web3. Like that could be a fun conversation. Maybe you have some interesting questions. But it's an open floor. If you want to be live on the stage, message me on X or LinkedIn. I'm kind of watching my DMs there for anybody who might want to join live. I'll send you a link. You can join us for a little bit of the program and add your piece. If you want, though, post a comment, ask questions. We're here to talk about Web3 games. And I'm coming here from Los Angeles today. So I'm at Augmented World Expo, AWE. They actually have I saw a lot of Web3 stuff as I was walking around the exhibit hall. It all comes from Korea and more of these Asia Pacific region.
The Augmented World Expo is AR. It's like augmented reality.
It's AR, VR, mixed reality. So if you walk around there, you'll see Meta with their platform. I didn't see Apple, but I have to go back through again. It's kind of shocking that Apple wouldn't want to be there. But I saw Meta. There's Magic Leap.
Still? What?
Yeah, I know. Strange but true. Like, apparently they raised like hundreds of millions at a multi-billion-dollar valuation just earlier this year. Like they keep going. They're demoing their tech. But these guys still exist.
Did their thing, right? And it was.
I tried it.
I saw you with their headset on.
Yeah, I tried it. It was fine.
Now, which one you try? Which one did you try?
The Magic Leap augmented reality glasses. It works. What's nice about it is it's very lightweight, and it can project information into the scene. And they had a cool demo where you walk around like a museum and you interact with artifacts, and it brings up the information about the artifacts that interacting with. It was cool. I will say about that particular demo, I wasn't really clear why the augmentation of the displays was better than me just walking around a museum and seeing
printout
information placards, because there was an aspect of certain things were video presentation and it was neat. I think in the hands of a really talented developer, they could actually do a lot more with that, like something a little bit more interactive where it was more playful between me as the end user and the content. Like maybe like it was a cool thing. Like there were like musical instruments, and it was like a simulated museum of a well, more than a simulated, that had literal artifacts because it was mixed reality. So you could pick up like maracas. I really wanted it to do something like, okay, shake the maraca. Like, let's make some music here. Let's do something cool. Like, it didn't have anything quite that interactive. Yeah. It was more like, here's a little heads up display. So cool, but I really want to see like the really talented immersive designers. Like I want to see what someone from, I don't know, Disney Imagineering would do with this stuff. Like they'd come up with something
That's so
way
funny you
cool.
say that. My friend, which you may know, one of you guys may know, Jeremy Van Hooser. He was an art director that I worked with. He was a creative director at. He ended up at EA, Plants vs Zombies, Garden Warfare for a while, and then he was at Magic Leap for like 3 years. And him and his team, I think they were responsible for basically trying to do interactive storytelling and make a sort of piece that would be the pitch to then other studios could realize, wow, look at what we could do. And I've heard through the grapevine that the thing they made is like a tearjerker. It's this amazingly emotional thing that you look through and see, and it never saw the light of day. That was like, it was ready to, it went in the can right when they laid off, everyone during whenever that was 3 years ago. But I have heard that. And so it's so funny you say that, like, I wish someone great would make something creative. And it's like, oh, well, Jeremy was the guy. And he talked about how crushing it was. I mean, him and his whole team worked on it for years. It was supposedly like everyone that saw it loved it. And then, who knows where it is now. Like, because it's one of those things too, you can't even watch it on YouTube. Like, you can't go see it. You have to have the headset, I guess, to experience it. So, I wonder if they're ever going to release it. But
yeah. So, yeah, you know what? It's a cool tech. It's lightweight. Like, it feels like wearing glasses. Like these are actually the Meta Wayfarers. So I'm wearing, but these aren't augmented reality. They can play sound. They have microphones in them. You can talk to it. You can do Meta AI through it.
What do you use it to do though?
It's a really good audio player. So I actually love it walking around like cities and stuff, because you can't really wear the AirPods walking down the street in traffic. Like if you want to hear like somebody might hit you with a car.
Can other people hear your music? Or
if it's turned way up and they're really close, they can hear it, but it's bone conduction audio. So it's mostly kind of transmitted into your head. But yeah, it, like if you listen carefully, you might be able to hear it in a quiet space, but in a city, you would not hear it unless you have super hearing or something.
And are those prescription lenses that you have there?
Mine aren't, no, but they're transitions. So they turn to sunglasses outside. So I just use these as sunglasses too. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. The AI piece is a gimmick right now.
I get freaked out when I see someone wearing them. I'm like, shit, I'm being recorded. It's as if you walked up with your phone on me. So that's the part that I don't.
It's so funny you say that, because I've worn these around Consensus. So for those who are tuning in, I mean, it's a big Web3 kind of blockchain conference. So that was a few weeks ago. And I got asked so many times about it. They're like, are you recording me right now? Like, so there's a built-in like libertarian, anti-surveillance state, anti-big tech kind of element in Consensus. And I think no one tried to punch me, so that was good. That used to happen the days of Google Glass, but I just explained it. I'm like, no, the light will come on. As far as I know, Zuckerberg isn't spying on us all secretly through these things. I don't think the battery life wouldn't last if that was happening. So I'm pretty sure of it. But a Consensus, I got asked all over the place. Here at AWE, nobody asks. So it's either it's for this group, it's virtual reality, augmented reality. So they're either cool with it or it's just like totally normalized now amongst this set of developers.
And so at AWE, what's the Web3 angle? I mean, you said a lot of Korean, APAC type. Is it still metaverse? Is it still, or
it is, yeah. They're keeping the metaverse alive. Like, it's funny.
Metaverse if you never died in Asia.
Well, it hasn't died, according to Tim Sweeney, and I listened to what he says. You know, I think he's knows what he's talking about an awful lot of the time. It hasn't died for Zuckerberg, even though he doesn't use the word as much. But in Asia, it's still very much a thing where I think there's sort of an interconnection between this idea of Web3 and interoperability and common avatar systems and item systems, and trying to take like the concept of Roblox and some of the things you can do in something like a Roblox, where you do in fact have interoperable assets, and there's kind of a proven business model around the players in that community valuing it, and trying to take that but decentralize it so that the builders around core infrastructure are able to stitch together these universes around common avatars. I think the challenge with that is like, what infrastructure, right? Because you're still making a set of decisions that you become dependent upon.
Yeah. I think the metaverse is a real thing. We should just keep the term. I hate it when people are like, no, you can't say metaverse anymore. It's like, I mean, it's going to happen, guys. It's just a matter of time. It's just the hype got way out in front of the, reality.
Yeah.
And then it became and then like people, it was one of those things kind of like VR was, where like celebrities and people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about wanted to glue themselves onto it so that they could be hip and relevant or whatever, and to assuage their fears about the death of Hollywood, and then it just became like, oh, all those like grifters and whatever, like there's kind of a movable feast of that happens with new technology, and then after the thing that I always noticed when I was at the studios was that, like, the first thing all these new tech guys do is they go to the studio marketing people, and the studio marketing people want to do something. They don't have any budgets, so they wind up doing something really flimsy, and it's like not super compelling, but has this big IP associated with it, and it just lets everyone down, and then you're in the trough of disillusionment, But the metaverse is, I mean, it's going to happen. It's happening already,
Sure, it's Fortnite, it's Roblox. It's just happening more within walled gardens right now. What I'd like to see is is a ultimate disconnect between the tools that one uses to create quality content, which is Unity, Unreal Engine, things that are actually, fully expressive 3D creation systems in which anything can emerge from it. Disconnect that from the idea of infrastructure that interoperates with each other. I mean, it's really what the mission of Beamable is. We've got a long way to go. Our next step is to decentralize the infrastructure network underneath it, which we think will help move things in the direction of, now you can go to whatever compute provider you want, any kind of composable framework on top of it around your code, and then you bring your engine, basically, and your 3D engine is what I'm referring to, and build whatever you want, and it's whatever level of interoperability you want. So we're hoping to. I wrote a blog and still have a blog called Building the Metaverse, and I wrote it
you haven't renamed
before
it.
Metaverse was hot, and I've read it down all the way to it being like toxic, and I'm just sticking with it, waiting for that day when everyone's like, John Radoff guy, he saw it coming and he stuck by it.
You should have published
just right behind.
And you would have made some of that Matthew Ball money, right?
Oh, I should have just gotten in bed with private equity or something at that point.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what he did. He made. I mean, he probably made a couple milli off the book sale, I have to imagine, and then he raised a fund, right? You know,
if anyone's watching who would help me become a sellout, I'm ready. Just reach out.
me too.
Slide my DM.
I'll do it.
Slide my DM.
Me too. I'm not too proud for anything.
Not too proud. We've been around long enough to sell out. Yeah.
Clearly, we're in Web3.
we have a question from the audience here. From Les. The question is, hello, I have a question. Why games are not developed vertical for VR? It would be more intuitive motion. I'm not actually sure what you mean, Les. So if
do you understand long ways? I don't understand what they mean.
Ask add a follow-up question just to clarify what you mean.
Or is it like this?
Well, I do agree that just generally moving in VR spaces is very awkward because you have a movement mechanic where it seems very slow in almost every game if you just use the joystick move, and then the other common movement mechanism is teleporting, and that's okay when you get used to it, but it's not natural, right? It would work fine in a game.
Both of them make
Portal.
nauseous. I think my kids all play, and I saw this article I posted about it this morning actually, that Gorilla Tag is now clipped 100 million in revenue.
What is Gorilla Tag? I saw someone talking about it, but I have no idea what it is.
You should pull it up. I mean, it's actually a pretty good VR game. It's very much like one of those sort of Robloxy social experiences. Much more, there's a lot of like little mini games to do, but the locomotion is actually pretty good. You swing your arms, and so you kind of like grab and pull, and pull. And so every time I walk by my kids, I'm like getting hit as they're like just swinging their arms. But when I did it, I didn't really like it. And most of those VR things, I don't like moving in 3D space when I'm not normally. It's weird because like as a kid, I didn't get nauseous at all, but as an adult, it just doesn't feel right anymore. And I experimented with a lot of that stuff early on in VR because I thought, oh man, riding a horse is going to be killer in VR, and it just made me nauseous,
Interesting.
But regardless,
I think vehicle-based
that
movement
version
works well.
Yeah. I mean, I played Gran Turismo. I bought the PSVR 2. I thought, oh my god, this is going to be the killer app. But that one, it's like when the car would reach banks and then your head doesn't turn, then I would also get nauseous. I was like, well, what's going on? Why am I not? I wished that they had pinned the camera straight forward at where my head is, because then it's like all of a sudden it's turning and I'm like, oh shit, should I turn my head with it? So there's little things like that like throw you off. Kids, I think, are used to it though, and it doesn't hurt them as bad. But yeah, but anyway, the Gorilla VR movement is pretty great. And so the rest of the game though is very Robloxy. I mean, it's not a game, it's just there's a lot of like little chases. I mean, the core was tag. You're just chasing the other people with this kind of mechanic, and then now it's of course years and years in, or however long, and they've been building it to be richer and richer. But it's pretty funny to watch them play it.
There's a couple of really good lessons from Gorilla Tag, though, and one of them is that the way people are actually using it now is not necessarily the core game. It's like a hangout, and it's primarily played by teenagers, maybe early 20s. Like, so it's sort of like spanning that same spectrum as Roblox has historically been covering, or a lot of Minecraft games kind of hits a similar demographic, where now Gorilla Tag isn't just the game, it's the social hangout, and people might go and do tag for a little bit, but they'll just kind of hang out in there. So I think that social aspect is really important. But there's a really important lesson too, though, which is Gorilla Tag didn't start necessarily. I don't know what the creators were thinking. I've never spoken to them, actually. I'd love to speak to them, but I don't think they were necessarily expecting that to happen out of the very first moments. I think they were making a game, and then the social aspects kind of just took off within it. Maybe they had that vision from the beginning, but the point is there was a fun game that people just wanted to play, and that's going back to the metaverse stuff. That's the problem with all these metaverse applications and platforms, is people want to create the social environment without a context for why you want to be there.
That's a good point.
Fortnite creator mode works because Fortnite's a great game, right?
Yeah,
Minecraft.
I mean, when you step back and think of this, like the novel mechanic of the locomotion being like, it's fun to go chase my friend around just by itself because of this thing they invented. then now it's sort of like everything after came, like, oh, well, now I'm tired, so now I'll just hang out in here with you and be social. So it's like, yeah, they stumbled into the sort of Roblox side. They probably just said, let's make a tag game, and then realized, well, wow, everyone's, as they catch their breath, they're in here chatting and doing other stuff. So now we need to lean in on cosmetics. We need to lean in all the other stuff that typically happens once you get the social thing going. So yeah, that's a great point, though. You do have to have something novel and something cool to do at the beginning, and then maybe it'll inevitably devolve into, just hanging out.
Yeah.
And
of course, it's
and
games.
huge
So there's
spend.
always
Yeah.
there's always the exception that proves the rule. So, I mean, it's VR chat is the exception that proves the rule, which is someone built now there are games put into VR chat also, but it kind of started from the reverse perspective. But I think they kind of had a first mover advantage. People were just kind of looking for things to do on what was then the Oculus and the MetaQuest, and they kind of filled a void. I think it's a really interesting time to be a VR developer, in that there really isn't that much content on MetaQuest. They do have an installed base of 20 million. There's big questions about how many people are actually using it every month. But let's just say it's 1 million users, like 1 million really engaged users every month. With the right game, with the right budget, where you don't get carried away, like some people are making really good money at that as a VR developer. And that hasn't always been true in the past. Like, you could be a small studio making way more than enough to sustain yourself. Like, you could live quite well. And I know some cases of 2, 3, 4 person studios where it's very lucrative to be on that platform.
Yeah. That's really the trick, right? Is to keep your team small and not probably bet big on, because you are going to try, and you're going to probably have to stumble into a little bit of it and let, you're not building a AAA experience.
I did a bunch of VR stuff at Universal, and we did the Jurassic World. We did a big Jurassic World installation at Dave & Buster's. So it was a motion vehicle, and then you put I think it was a Vive on your head at that time, and it was like four or five players in this motion simulator, and it worked pretty well. I wanted to do, the problem with all of those things is throughput from and we were working with our live events team a lot on these things. What I wanted to do was like, when the Oculus 2 came out, unfortunately it was kind of, when things started to go downhill at Universal, but when the Oculus 2 came out, it had the ability to see QR codes on and map textures and things onto physical spaces. And I was like, what would be great is just like a haunted house, which could be very high throughput because it's just a walkthrough, and you're just and no, real interactivity other than just looking around, right? Like where you look, it could trigger things. But I was like, then it could be fucking awesome because you could be in a maze, but it could look like this complete open world, like we wanted to do a thing where like, oh, you're going into Dracula's castle, and like when you start, you're out in front and you can see around and see the whole landscape, and maybe there's shit, popping up behind tombstones or whatever. And then as you go into the castle, like the walls could be very close and very claustrophobic, and like there's a lot of stuff you could do with that. And you can do redirected walking as well, which is basically having you walk, kind of walk in a circle really, but making it feel like you're moving forward, and through kind of tricks in the way you design your VR experience. But I always thought like that idea of like just Halloween walkthroughs and doing those at like malls and shit would be awesome, and probably make some money.
You ever do the Star Wars experience? The one here in Disney down in Orlando. I've done it a couple times.
Yeah,
it's killer.
So fun. It's pretty good, but it's very expensive, right? They have a lighthouse in there that's like, I want to say like $100,000 lighthouse or something for each one of those sound stages. Like it's very expensive compared to what you can do now with with the Quest 3 or with the Vision Pro. You don't need any of that shit. You know what I mean? Like the real cool thing would be headsets, no tech in the facility or very light tech in the facility, and it's just looking at walls and just projecting what it needs to, kind of like interpreting that how it wants, but putting you in a totally virtual environment. That would be the ideal,
with a token.
You know what?
With a token.
You know what I played yesterday at the conference was a partner dancing game that worked pretty well in VR. And here's the way they do it. So it's kind of teaching you how to dance with a partner. And so you have your partner and you're holding her hands in the simulation, but you're holding controllers in your hands. So in a weird way, like because you're holding controllers in your hands, it almost tricks your brain into thinking, oh, I'm actually holding the other character's hands while I'm doing this. And you can do things like spin them and things like that. Yeah, it actually worked really well. So there's cool ideas out there. And I could see people how to dance.
We keep descending out of Web3, don't we? We keep finding all these other cool things.
That reminds me, when I was in Web3, or when I was in the toy business, I went over to a toy factory one time, and the guy made this was in probably 2005-ish or something, and the guy made both toys and consumer electronics, like MP3 players, and so he said, I have this thing, you have to come see it. So we drove an hour to his factory, and then we sit in the conference room, and he brings in this bear that's all hacked up and it's got wires coming out of his head. It looks like something out of a horror movie. And there's a girl sitting down at one end of the table, and then I'm sitting at my end of the table, and he's like, hold its hand. And I'm like, okay. And then she holds its hand, and it gets kind of a little warm, and he's like, it's haptics. And I'm like, why the fuck would I want this feature? It was the worst haptics demo of all time. But
I did so many haptics demos yesterday.
Trying to find a nice way to say your haptics is goofy.
Yeah, I saw your feed. You were wearing bulletproof vests and every sort of.
It looks like that. It did make me look cool. I just want to get the tactical suit because it makes me look like I'm badass or something.
Is that the new I don't know, would you ever want that, to play a shooter and feel bullets? I don't know if I would ever even remotely think that I want that.
Well, you wouldn't want to feel what a bullet really feels like, but maybe it would give you some extra information to help you calculate the direction of where the bullet came from. Could help you in gameplay. And I did hear from one of my followers who commented back to me that he uses the suit pretty regularly when playing shooter games, and he does just the feedback from that. So I'd have to say though, I went and tried all these haptics demos. I'm going to try more today after the live stream, because I really want to be impressed by this technology, but I wasn't really getting that impressed by the haptics tech that I was experiencing. Usually it was very bulky. I couldn't see myself using it very much, and it wasn't really helping me do more things. It was kind of clunky, very uncanny valley experience. There was one experience that I did where it used the tactics suit to simulate getting electrocuted, because it was this. it was a experience. It was very well made. It was teaching. It was the concept was conversion therapy. So conversion therapy, for people who don't know, it's
oh no,
it's people try to. You're a gay person, you're trying to make you not gay, or you're a trans person trying to make you not trans. So so the experience was let's take you through that so you can see what that experience is like. I mean, it's horrifying, basically. And I guess in the UK, there was some period of time where they basically strapped you to a table and started electrocuting you in response to
it was
stimuli.
trying to show you what it's like so that you
would have an appreciation for
sympathy,
like what that terrible experience would be like. So I would say, you know,
I was like, what kind of monster would make this?
So you thought it was a realism simulator?
No. It was to help people gain some empathy for people that have had to go through that experience and how horrible it is. And it was really well done. Obviously, I wasn't actually feeling electrocuted, but you'd have the vest on and it would like buzz the whole vest and like, okay, it's not exactly pleasant. That was kind of working, but I was just basically buzzing my whole body, and it worked in that context. And maybe again, it comes down to really creative people can apply these technologies in ways that are much better than the demoware from the Vest Creator or the Magic Leap that we were talking about. So people figure out, game developers and experienced developers, they figure out how to use it. But that experience, by the way, is called "I Will Defy You to My Dying Breath," I believe is the name of that experience. And
working title.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So it was very well made. And
I'm a big fan of defying.
Are they launching a token, John? Is there a pre-sale?
Yeah. They're not. No. So it's not Web3. You know, here's my take on like Web3. I think is great for so many different applications, but it's not going to be. I hate it when people declare something the future of gaming, because anytime someone says that, you almost automatically know like they don't know what they're talking about, because it almost never plays out that way, or it takes way longer, and then the future of gaming ends up being something that you'd never expect. Like 2 years ago, like only a few really smart people saw Pal World taken off this year, and it took off. Like that could have been the future of gaming, but no one would have believed it. Irina is identifying the dancing game that I was referring to earlier, Dark Arts Entertainment. Patrick has an amazing VR dancing experience. Yeah, Dark Arts Entertainment is the name of the studio making that. I would recommend checking it out. And the other VR experience from the same developer I was referring to with that conversion therapy, I guess that wasn't in development. It's not out yet. He has something on the App Store called This Body of Mine. We have a pertinent to the Web3 question. Jonathan Perkins asks, this might sound totally ignorant. Don't worry about it. Jonathan, we like those questions, because that just means there's 100 other people in the audience who have the same question, but they didn't want to post the comment. Post comments, folks. Like we have the line is open here. You can post a comment and we'll talk about it. You can even DM me on X or LinkedIn and join the stage, because we got a spot for someone who's a game developer who'd like to join us live and talk about your Web3 game project, or even just ask questions about it, or maybe you're considering Web3. We can have a creative discussion around it. But Jonathan's question is, can you guys please give your best definition of Web3 gaming? Would love to know the edges. I don't know, Ian, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can draw a decent line, because photo finish is sort of a Web 2.5, is at least the way we consider it. And I think of a Web 3.
Add more jargon. Okay, go.
But that edge for me means, like, when I think of a pure Web 3 game, it means that it's on the chain, and that like the transactions that are happening are stored on the blockchain. I don't care what chain it is, but like there is a ledger of these transactions is sort of the way I look at it. And then of course you could be like, well, do they have a token probably integrated into the economy, so that there's some sort of, again, that economic value moving around on the chain too. But I could imagine, if I thought about Fortnite, and Fortnite is exactly how it was, but all the skins and the user accounts were saved on the blockchain, I would start to consider that a Web3 game. And I would not consider it what it is now, Web 2. Whereas again, with photo finish, you've got like half of the stuff on chain. You have, most of it's in our database. So that's why I say Web 2.5. But that's usually where I draw the line, is if you kind of need a wallet, there are transactions happening on the chain in order for it to work. That's what I typically draw the line as Web3. And it does seem like hasn't it been the kind of vote lately that Web3 is a bad name and we need to just change it to something else, crypto games or something? I don't know.
So Sam Stefina and I had this conversation on X today, and yesterday he tried out. Every day he posts Web3 is inevitable. Web3 gaming is inevitable. Yesterday he tried crypto gaming is inevitable. He decided that he doesn't like it because he feels like it's, when you say crypto, it's too much about the financialization. I tend to agree with that. I think Web3 is more inclusive of the culture around it, the technology and the culture, which is, this kind of community-based build in public. Not that that's exclusive to Web3, but kind of the build in public, community-based, the whole kind of go to market around getting your community, building your community from the very beginning. I think there's like a lot of ideas that I would put under the Web3 banner that I don't think are strictly crypto ideas, but are kind of like a new way of going to market and live operating games, so that's why I like the Web3 better, but I think you defined it well.
Unfortunately, there's no term that isn't toxic in some way because terms just have been wrecked by a lot of bad actors in the ecosystem, and unfortunately, that's just kind of part of it when you walk into this space. But I just think of Web3 as anything that uses blockchain in it. And by the way, there's lots of non-financial applications of blockchain that are really interesting. Yes, you can use it for buying and trading assets and build a Magic the Gathering style collecting economy game. That's an approach to it, but you could put a lot of things on blockchain that just bring total transparency and trust to an ecosystem of information. So you could put match records, for example, in an online game where being able to publicly show who won which match is important to tournament systems, to esports, things like that. And then you could allow a whole body of applications to consume that information, know that it's accurate, know that it's real, build like a community ecosystem around that. So that's like a non-financial application. But Web3 just means blockchain in some way. And it's good for facilitating transactions because of the transparency, the accuracy of the information, but it can be used for a lot of other things as well. It doesn't have to be a game with trading pieces, although clearly that is a big part of it. It doesn't have to have a token. That could be part of it. But it's just sort of this experiment. It's still very the experiment stage. Like people are trying to see what works, what people like. We're moving towards them becoming more and more.
If you think 5 years from
games.
now, I think there'll be, I sort of had this talk on one of the horse business podcasts that I had with some friends at one point. And it was like, it does feel like 5 years from now, they'll just be games. Like there's going to be a game that's writing all of its data to the chain right next to Clash of Clans and Candy Crush on the mobile app stores. And we won't think like, oh, well, that's the Web3 one. It'll start to fade away into being infrastructure. I feel like there'll always be these novel things, but I feel like at some level, most gamers won't probably care. It'll just be there.
Well, no, it's like, your game runs on MongoDB. Do you care? Right?
No, right.
Going to care.
Yeah.
So the player only cares about the experience and what they're going to get to do. And by the way, we have a live audience now, over 300 people. Thanks everybody for watching this. I'm glad to hear the interest. We'll have to A/B test that blockchain versus crypto versus Web3 sometime and see which title draws the biggest audience. I feel like Web3 is still one of those terms where you can poke a little bit and a lot of people will be like, yeah, I'm interested in that, or no, I hate that. I want to see what they're talking about. So it kind of feeds into the whole cycle of emotion that exists in social media and pulls people in.
Can you see my screen?
I can't.
Or do you have to share
Do we need to add to stage?
Yeah, here you go.
There we go.
So this is something I posted earlier today. Our success, and so Bryce posted this thing about Gaming doesn't need crypto to be successful. Anything blockchain related should improve the gaming experience by more than just a little. If it does not improve the experience by 5x, people won't feel compelled to care enough to jump in. And I said our success in gaming is going to be about mainstreaming these concepts: owning and trading gaming assets, play to earn, cashing out game tokens for cash. It's not. And I said it's not about tech. The tech needs to be invisible. It's about use cases. Once gamers get hooked on these use cases, they won't want to go back.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, like games like Madden and FIFA Ultimate Team, that you spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading your team, opening packs. The loot box gotcha style game that you have a great time, and then at the end of the year they rug you and steal everything, so you want to play the new game. All it takes is some other game, please, to make that not be the case, and EA will have to change. Like, they're just no user would, in their right mind, if the games were similarly good, they would always pick the one where they at least keep the asset. And EA could find another way to monetize, like we all have. So I agree fully, though, that like that is the experience of the user. It's not about where the data was written, which chain, which database. Doesn't really matter. It's that like this model is, I think, much more aligning between the developer and the player. I've said quite a few times, the other one, the free-to-play model right now, at least for the last 10 years in mobile, is pretty predatory. And it's why most gamers don't trust us very much in free-to-play, because we're doing loot boxes and all these, kind of annoying pay-to-win games, all the top mobile games. And so I think
all the stuff that Beamable helps game developers do if they want to add that to their game.
I love gotcha. I don't have a problem with gotcha.
Yeah.
X Swampy has a comment here. He says, to me, it is real ownership of, he's referring to like what is a Web3 game. It's real ownership of digital assets. You have games like RuneScape that have massive OTC trading, but it's all against the TOS. So I have so many thoughts about this. Curious, Ian and Chris, yours. But my initial kind of thought, though, is yep, there's sort of like this proven existence of games where items can be traded. You're just not supposed to, because at one point in time, just like the game designs didn't exist to limit the way people interacted in certain ways. And then you have like these third-party markets, basically the eBays of digital trading, where people do it anyway. Yep, that exists. A lot of people point to that as like a rationale for just do it in Web3 anyway. So two thoughts, quick thoughts though. Number one, I actually have a theory that there's sort of like an optimal level of letting it happen and turning a blind eye to it with a very inefficient market in your game that actually is good for the game. So you can have a RuneScape where certain players are trading, and as long as it isn't sort of so automated within the game experience that it actually adds to engagement for a group of players. But if you were to actually make it hyper efficient, like people were trading all the time, you might actually subtract engagement. And the reason for that is RuneScape wasn't really designed for that. So it does. So the second part is it comes down to design, and
it has to be designed
to be built for a trading economy. A trading economy isn't something that you just add to your typical free-to-play game or RPG.
Exactly.
Diablo. They try, and it can ruin things pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned Diablo. Everyone has to talk about Diablo 3 when we bring this up. So there's two really good cases to look at. Diablo 3's edition of a efficient auction market for trading items backfired. And the completely unrelated one would be Star Wars Battlefront adding loot box mechanic to their game. So I have a theory on this, and the theory is that a big part of games is the brand and the community expectation that you establish over a course of time with your audience, and that pivoting business models is just fraught with disaster. I can think of one case where it was done pretty well. Like I know that Lord of the Rings Online, Turbine, they were able to go from kind of subscription MMORPG to an in-game, more itemized economy. That's the exception to the rule, though. When you have a big product like Star Wars Battlefront and then suddenly throw gotcha mechanic in front of that player, I think that is just that you're just begging the community to backfire on you. And with Diablo, like the claim could be made that if you go back to Diablo 2, the SOJs where the Stone of Jordan was like the currency. I was a huge Diablo 2 player. I had multiple level 90 plus characters in hardcore. I was one of the top players on hardcore mode.
Nice.
But so I know well the trading economy that happened there. But if you add efficiency to it, then it's front and center for the players, and then it starts getting rejected, and the immune system, which is coming from your community, sets in to just reject that. So I don't look at Diablo. I don't think their idea was a terrible one from a game design standpoint. It was only terrible from the standpoint of that wasn't the game and the brand where you would deploy that kind of behavior.
I didn't play it. I only read about it, and it seemed like the outside view was actually that it was more of a tuning, like just mistakes. Rather, do you think it was systemic, like it just never could work, or was it really like more of there were too many of the wrong item for sale? Rarity was tuned incorrectly, or what have you.
I just don't think they're ever going to get there in that particular game because it caused a type of play which was about farming and selling, and it brought it front and center. And then you're demoralizing parts of your audience, and they're feeling like it's now just a money game, which is not what they signed up for. So you can have that kind of economy. It's fine. Like that there are games where the real money economy is part of the gameplay. But
most free-to-play games are pay to win. In China, they want paying to win, right? In Asia, it's they tutorialize how to pay in the game as part of the fatui, right? I mean, it's just a Western attitude, but even in the West, free to play is more than half the players and more than half the dollars in the games industry. I mean, it's but core gamers who are higher skill, don't want it because they want pure competition. I just think you have to know what kind of game you're making, and and cater to that kind of audience, and know that if you're making a game that's pay to win, like, then the people with the most money are going to buy the game, right? And then what about everybody else? But we've also, Fortnite and other games have proven, CS:GO and others, like you can make a lot of money off skins. So, you don't necessarily have to go the pay to win route,
Although that I also have seen a lot of pitches from early stage game studios where they point to that. That's also a risky path since this is a game developer audience. Like, I think that you can look at these totally scaled out games like League of Legends or Fortnite, and then it can become really compelling to you to want to kind of do avatar customization essentially as your business model. But that just requires so much scale for that business model to pan out, that I'd rather see studios figure out the business model that works for 100,000 players or 1 million players before they think about like what makes them a world-beating success with 100 million players. Irina made a point here that going back to Diablo 3, commoditization of in-game items actually cheapened the game experience in Diablo 3. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I also remember that Diablo 3 was around the same time as they ended up pulling the auction house for real money trading, and they also really overhauled the loot system as well, because the loot system was a little bit boring going into Diablo 3, and then they made the items a lot more dynamic and interesting. And then Irina had another comment she followed up with here, saying D3 turned into a marketplace filled with farmers looking to make a buck from drops rather than playing with real gamers.
Right.
So yeah, I think your community.
You mean like Web3?
Well, your
Right,
community,
yeah.
your community will evolve with the gameplay system, and when you have a long-running franchise like Diablo, the community already existed before the game even launched. Like you had millions and millions of people who had played the game in Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. It's why, in some ways, when they did Diablo Immortal, which was the mobile free-to-play game, I thought it was a very well-made game. Frankly, the free-to-play was very tame in that. Like it wasn't a go for the jugular, like, okay, you're now a monetization target.
Yeah, because they were scared.
I bought
They were
some
scared to death. Yeah.
I bought some currency in that. I couldn't even figure out how to spend it. Really, like, or only I could spend it if it was sort of on silly things. So I think I still have. I bought like $100 worth of currency in Diablo Immortal, and I think like $90 of that is still sitting in a game I haven't played in a while, unspent.
Throw my screen up real quick. Why aren't we talking about the game of the year?
Game of the year.
Tell us about it, Chris.
Actually, look at the fourth screenshot. Really tells the story.
Yeah, banana. It's a banana, and you click it.
Oh, dude, I love they even still have the made with Unity splash screen. Like
I know
Unity Pro.
Spared no expense. This is like the top downloaded game on Steam.
Yeah,
and it's a completely free to play game. Yeah,
yeah.
Top DAU, and they have different. You basically click.
It's crazy, dude. We lived through this. Does no one remember? Like, this was a thing. Like, Cow Clicker and Cookie Clicker was what, 15 or something years ago? Like, those already happened, and here we are. And here we are again with another. Like what?
Yeah, but
the funny thing with Cow Clicker,
buy collectible bananas. That's the banana changes, dude. Right?
That's horrible.
The banana you're clicking on changes.
That's the worst art. I mean, like, there's AI now. AI art would make that much better. Like, why are they doing that?
The banana changes, and then you can, they have a community design the bananas, right?
No, looks great.
And then you could buy the bananas. And I don't know what the benefit of buying the banana. Does anyone know on the comments know what the banana? Okay, Sam is
increased rate, right?
What is banana to the moon, lads? Cookie Clicker still rips. Yep, I just found out the skins.
Cookie Clicker is cookie.
You can't apply them. They just sit in your
Clicker's
inventory.
Amazing.
I monetized. I'm a paying player of Cookie Clicker.
You're a cookie whale.
I bought that subscription because they have a good monetization mechanism in there. Like, they haven't gone for the jugular in that game by any stretch of the imagination.
Can we start? Can this group start? Because we have probably a few hundred people. We need to start a campaign to make Banana Game of the Year at the Game of the Year Awards.
At DICE, yeah. Or Gamescom.
DICE.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
We should all go wearing our banana shirts, and then when they get
I'm not
off,
doing that.
And then when they don't win, we should
make our own
it's
banana.
Crime. It's rigged. You know what I mean? Like, throw a fucking fit. Like, oh, it's rigged.
We should make our own banana game. Then do that. Banana 2, and then make Banana 2 the game of the year. Because this has to be a game that you can make in a weekend. I mean, Now, it's earning tokens, I'm assuming, similar to Hamster, right? I mean, I haven't even looked at.
No,
skins don't even work.
No.
That's amazing.
Hamster Combat is for a token.
It's token, but it's banana
airdrop. Banana, there's no airdrop.
What? Gotta be.
You just collect the skins. And Sam is saying you can't even apply, like, you can't even use them in the game.
So we just need.
We
need to make Banana 2, and
hell yeah,
you can import your ape, and your board ape, and just superimpose your banana right over it.
Dude, it's like looking at the images. I think that's Unity's default label. Like, when you drag it out onto the canvas, like, they didn't even change the font. They didn't change like the first tutorial of Unity. Drag text onto canvas. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the same font.
You guys stop trying to build real games. Just do a banana clicker. Like,
I'm going to do a clicker. I think I'm very close to doing a clicker.
Like,
but then, of course, I start like making
point.
it better in my mind. Like, the problem is, I'm like, I can't do like banana. Like,
no,
you know, like,
you couldn't
gotta make it better.
Yeah, you'd have
so
to.
Then I have
what do I do
ideas
when you
on how to
level
make
up?
it better.
Yeah,
it's performance art, though. Like, you're going down the path. You're doing the exact thing that the performance art is a public critique of. Which is,
I know.
Well,
you know the origin
you're
of
trying
this
to
whole
polish
genre,
that,
right?
No,
you know the whole
tag
genre,
is psychological
whole genre.
No, what's the story?
Ian Bogost, who's like a professor,
yeah.
He
made
made
a
it
game
as
called
a
Cow
social
Clicker.
critique.
Yes, it was a critique of Zynga had come out, and Zynga had come out and said, well, the point of our games isn't necessarily fun, it's pain, it's like fun pain, you know, and
dopamine.
And like, you know, core gamer brains just like exploded, like couldn't take. And it was poorly phrased, whatever. So then Ian did this cow clicker that admittedly was pretty funny. And then people started fucking clicking on the cows and wanting to like trade the cow, you know, like make money, like we're paying in the game for cows. And then he was like, it became this monster, and then that became Cookie Clicker. And it's like this whole genre was born of just look, if you click this thing, you'll get a little dopamine release. And it sort of proved his point, but not in the way he wanted, you know. But it was all a satire of free to play.
I was at Zynga, and there was a presentation by, I'm trying to remember his name, but he's actually a kind of famous designer, but they did this whole like psychological reveal of the big, they called them dubers at Zynga, where when you would, you know, claim your rewards from your crop, like all the little coins would shit out, you know, those were dubers. And you used to, like, I'd watch my mom, she'd click, 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 click. You know, she would click up all her dubers and they'd fly away. But this guy, this designer, whoever he was, again, he's kind of I'm trying to get, he did it where you could just swipe the mouse over them and they would suction up. And they put it was like an academic study that they presented of like this. Now you don't even have to click the dubers. It's just the psychological. Now there's so much more joy in the, you know, so they were telling everyone you can't click the dubers anymore.
That became the manager mechanic. That became the manager mechanic.
He's
right. You know what sucks about this game is having to press the button. So now I can hire a manager to press the button for me.
Yeah, to swipe.
Maybe we're gonna check. We're gonna just call.
We're
calling this live stream state of Web3 game development. Maybe we'll just call this Banana Chat or something.
Yeah, Banana Chat. We probably get a lot of viewers.
We need to get a brand. So speaking of this live stream, we're getting close to the end here. We've actually gone a little bit over. It's been such a conversation. But next week, our guest is going to be Bored Elon Musk. I think he just prefers to go by Bored these days. But we'll ask him
what a land.
He's live. Yeah, he's going to join us, and he's going to talk about maybe some of the work he's doing. He's involved in game development. I won't spoil anything he wants to share or steal his thunder. We'll give him a chance to talk about it. But definitely a guy who's prolific in Web3 and games, and we'll have a lot of opinions on all the game stuff that we just talked about. So we need all of you to be part of our Banana Chat army. We've got 347 live viewers here. We need you to send out the word,
Banana Boys,
that this is a conversation. Yeah,
you could come hang out in our banana hammock.
I'll get banned from DICE or game industry conferences if we call it.
I've been banned already. It's stuff like that.
Oh boy! All right. So yeah, we'd love everybody to come on next week. You know, the theme of this conversation is always going to be game development, right? So, but it's Web3, and it's here to, I'd say, educate, entertain, talk about this stuff, learn things, talk about games like Banana that are apparently breaking out and doing really well. Mm-hmm. So we're here to talk
deconstructing Banana.
It's usually going to be Web3, but when there's relevant games, of course, we're going to talk about anything. Like this is all game developers who need to understand what's working in the market. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into this. We've capped out about 350 live viewers this time. So if you have ideas on other guests like Board Elon Musk and you want more people like that to join the conversation, tag them here on Twitter, or I call it Twitter again. I still call it Twitter. I can't not call it Twitter.
You should.
On X, on LinkedIn, tag folks and say, hey, you should be in this, because it actually is structured as a live conversation. So we have the ability to add people real time during the course of this. So you can come in, spend part of the conversation with us and talk about your game, be part of the conversation. That's going to be a cool aspect of this, in addition to the chat and the conversation. So thanks to the audience and
before
Ian
you go,
and
John.
Chris. Yeah, go ahead.
Before you go, I just read and I figured out the genius of banana. I just figured it out.
Okay.
Everyone's clicking the banana, right?
Right.
Those rare skins drop 1 out of every million, right? The crystal or the whatever banana, right? Those are sellable skins on Steam Market, right? So they're ultra rare. Dev gets, I guess, probably 50 or 30% of the sale of the Steam skin. Okay. So that's all he's done, right? Like, so he's slowly dripping out 1 skin every million clicks, or I don't know, whatever his rate is, and those will sell because they're rare on the Steam store for
he created a minting mechanic.
Now, yeah, and so then and then he gets a royalty when those skins sell, and there you go. There's the genius, right?
Right. So let's see.
So Steam says they don't know how to have Web3 games, but they do. They just don't realize it.
Highest price is $1,600, $500. I mean, you have a whole page of them here.
Yeah.
Above $70.
It's a big brain move, man. It's a monetization
quantity,
model I would not have thought of, I guess, to just.
Yeah, I mean, the quantity is quite low, right? And then there's more common ones, like a regular banana is 3 cents.
Yeah, who would buy that? Right.
They need some burn mechanics, dude. If you could accumulate and burn.
Yeah, right.
Stick with us. Next week, we're going to give an update on banana and their sales.
We'll create what's working. We'll create our own
banana hammock.
We'll create our own banana breeding mechanic.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Chris. Been a fun conversation as usual. I look forward to next week. It's going to be
Bye.
Signing off.